today's women's volleyball match featuring the Greensboro College Pride and the Southern Virginia University Knights. President Ben and the Southern Virginia University staff, thank you for your support of the student athletes and coaches participating in tonight's contest. The NCAA and USA South Athletic Conference promote good sportsmanship by student athletes, coaches, and spectators. We request your cooperation by supporting the participants and officials in a positive manner. Profanity, racial, or sexist comments or intimidating actions directed at coaches, players, officials, or any other team representatives will not be tolerated and are grounds for removal. The consumption or possession of alcoholic beverages is strictly prohibited. Thank you, and please enjoy today's game. In accordance with tradition at Southern Virginia University, we will begin with a word of prayer, which will be offered by Dylan May.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We're thankful that both teams come here today to be able to play each other, and we bless that everybody can stay safe and enjoy the game, that we can all enjoy watching this match. And please bless that as the game concludes, that everybody can drive home safely, and we say these things in Jesus Christ. Amen.
Now, if you will please rise and face the flag for the playing of our nation's national anthem. Thank you. And now for your starting lineups. Starting for the Pride, sophomore setter from Mount Airy, North Carolina, number 3, Jalen Templeton.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's broadcasting for another edition of NCAA Division III Athletics, with tonight's women's volleyball contest being between the Pride of Greensboro College and your Southern Virginia University Knights. I'm Dawson Wiedrich, joined today by Jade Siemens. And Jade, these two teams coming in here with a very similar mission in mind, and that is to get back to winning and to correct the course.
Yes, I believe our team, let me bring up the stats, is 6-8?
And they're 6-8, yes, that's correct, yeah.
And Greensboro is
6-7.
6-7, yeah. So I think each one of these teams has winning in mind and getting the boat even, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and they also come in here with the exact same conference record of 3-1. The one thing that distinguishes the two teams in their record is, of course, their ability to win away from home. Southern Virginia barely doing better in that category, having one away victory, whereas Greensboro College has 0 so far, really struggled on the road, on official road games. And in this contest historically, Southern Virginia has really dominated, 5 victories to 1 loss against the Pride of Greensboro College. So the Knights looking to sort of defend that crown in a sense in this matchup that they've had over the past couple of years. We have the starters being announced for both squads so far today. For Southern Virginia, you have senior Jelaine Peterson, the only senior on the Southern Virginia squad. You also have Brenna Clyde, Sydney Bassett, Jessica Ensley, Sarah Hoofman, Caitlin Rankier, and Brooklyn Madlin. And for the Greensboro Pride, starting today at libero, you have Morgan Mayfield, then you have Jalen Templeton, and Kennedy Brumley, Lauren Mantell, Taylor Cody, Jade Robel, and Peyton Shiflett.
I've noticed that they put their 3 top attackers in their starting lineup tonight.
Indeed, when you come in here into the barn, like, you have to bring everybody that can be on their best game in here, because again, it's really hard to win in the barn of Southern Virginia.
Yeah.
And so we'll look to see if the Knights can continue to defend their home court. Again, like I mentioned before, it's very difficult for visiting teams to win here in the barn for a multitude of reasons. One of them, of course, being the Knight faithful, who tend to pour into here and create a lot of noise and support for the women's volleyball program. But also, of course, the elephant in the room, the lower ceiling in comparison to every other gym in America, feels like.
Yeah.
Teams really have to adjust for that.
Well, this barn did used to be an actual barn.
Right.
So it's, if you look at it in a far perspective, it is pretty incredible how this barn has transformed through the years.
It absolutely has. I remember when I first got here back in 2017, that was when Southern Virginia was transitioning from their colors being green and white to red and white. There was still a transition happening. The colors of the walls were darker. In just the past couple of years, the program's really come alive, and the schools really put an emphasis on their athletic programs and building them up. And again, like you said, going from back in the days being a literal barn to a arena in a gym where teams kind of dread coming here just because it's so difficult to win here is really something to behold. And so we'll see this game kick off again between two USA South rivals. The Knights, of course, being the USA South champions for the past 2 seasons.
So you mentioned earlier that we have a prominent winning streak against Greensboro, but this year we have 13 freshmen on our team.
Right.
Do you think that'll affect us at all?
There's always a potential to do so. That first serve there from Sydney Bassett will, of course, get to the youth of the roster, as you brought up, which is a huge prevalent point. There on the outside, that's number 25, Brooklyn Madlin, one of those freshmen that you mentioned.
Yes, she is also third on our attacking
and
roster.
Of course, right there, Brenna Clyde. So used to saying that she ends up with the kill. Brenna Clyde has been such a weapon for Southern Virginia in the 3 seasons, or I guess her in her 3rd season now. Last year, really coming into her own and becoming a prominent attacker on the outside. Here's Bassett once again for the serve as the Knights now lead 1-0 in this first set. Put right down by Brooklyn Madlin. Might as well have handed her a birthday cake and said, here you go, enjoy, and that she did.
Sydney Bassett is our best statistic server on the team.
Indeed she is. She comes in here with 19 service aces. And that's been one of her main skill sets that she has brought to Southern Virginia, and that'll be a point toward the Pride as that attempted block goes out of bounds, make it a 2-1 lead for Southern Virginia. And now for the Pride, you'll have number 3, Jalen Templeton, back to serve. She comes in this game with 348 assists, and you know, Jade, you and I were talking before the game. That is clearly a sign of her just literally running around like crazy to help out her team, and she's been so effective. But that serve was not so, going out of bounds.
Yes, I believe our strongest, what is the word I'm looking for? Anyway, she is Sarah Huffman. She's got our best statistic assist record.
Indeed, she comes, right, like you said, 255 assists going in this game. She's also been really busy going around the court, making sure to set up her teammates. That point also falls for the Pride. So that brings it back within 1 point, make it 3-2. Now with number 18, that is Peyton Shiflett back to serve, the sophomore from Asheboro, North Carolina. Peyton Shiflett comes into this game with 27 kills. Good work by Hoofman there, and then Bassett gets back over. Oh, excuse me, that was Madlin with the pass. Great diving effort there from libero for Greensboro College. That was Morgan Mayfield diving for that one, but the point falls to Southern Virginia. Coming in to serve for the Knights is number 13, Nikki Stevenson. Past 2 seasons, she has come in primarily to serve. Coaches have a lot of faith in her serving ability.
One of the 3 sophomores on our team this year.
Fantastic hit that time from number 12. That is Krista Brantley. And now back to serve for the Pride is number 13, Grace Klingen-Smith, who just checked in. Still a one-score set here. 4-3 in favor of Southern Virginia. Great dive there from Ensley. Bassett has to get it back over. Here's the middle. That's tipped at the net. But they're going to call it as a point for Greensboro College. It looked to me like there was definitely a tip at the net, but the ref's not seeing it that way.
I don't know. It is their job, but it's hard for us as spectators to say, what? Because we obviously want SVU to win.
And that hitting the top of the net, not getting touched. So another point to the Pride. And they take the lead in this first set, 5-4. Once again with number 13, Grace Klingen-Smith back to serve, the sophomore from Naples, Florida. That serve way out. And it ties this thing back up at 5.
Our team on the sideline is super energetic, and I think that's one of, because you don't see that obviously in basketball or other things. You have a set place where you're allowed to be. So basketball, you're not even allowed to get up from your chair, or you can get a technical foul. But our volleyball girls bring the spirit to this gym on the sidelines.
They absolutely do. They do a great job of supporting one another, and honestly, that's one thing that Coach David Baker and I were talking about before the game, was learning how to play together and just be together in general. And again, we talk about the youth of the Southern Virginia roster. That's one of those things that's really going to help them in the long run, as we now have number 8, Kennedy Brumley, back to serve, the freshman from Eagan, Minnesota. Great diving effort there once again from Mayfield. That hit from Brooks falls just short on that far side, ties it back up at 6, with now libero number 6, Jessica Ensley, back to serve. And Jessica Ensley's an interesting story. Last year doing a lot of work as a setter, filling in the role of libero this year, and really utilizing her back row skill set to help out this roster.
And she's done a fantastic job with that. From what I've seen and from the statistics that we have, she's really filled that position well.
She absolutely has. And she, of course, had some very big shoes to fill. Southern Virginia's roster has had several great liberos over the past 4 or 5 seasons. Pretty much ever since I've been here, there's always been a solid libero in the rotation. Now with number 9, Lauren Mantell, back to serve for the Pride. Bassett. And put back down by number 21, Caitlin Wankier. Wankier came into this game with 32 total blocks. Now back to serve as number 7, Sarah Hoofman, another one of these freshman from Las Vegas, Nevada. They're going to call a double here. I believe that was on number 10, Taylor Cody.
One thing Coach mentioned when we had our game against I believe it was Meredith College, is that our team does way better hitting rather than blocking, and that's one of the main things that brings our point percentage up.
Just much more efficient at the attack and being able to really read a defense, and that's absolutely a good point. You got a lot of really skilled hitters here on this roster, as that point fell for Greensboro College, ties it back up at 8. There was a bit of miscommunication there at the net as the ball just fell right to the ground and no one was going for it. Here's Bassett. Hoofman having to dig it sort of out of the net. They're going to call in the net. I believe they're going to say it was number 21, Caitlin Wankier. She's protesting that call, saying that she wasn't, but as the way it goes. Now with number 0, Morgan Mayfield, back to serve for the Pride. And it's always hard to tell in the situations of the set. It's not quite high enough, or if the hit was late, because again, there's a whole lot of timing that comes into those sets to the middle blocker. You have less time on your approach than you do on the outside, and so your window of opportunity is so short.
Yeah, a lot of volleyball is just timing.
Absolutely.
So it's hard to say whether or not, oh, it was late, oh, it was early. It's just, you never really know, because if you're 2 seconds late on a hit, that hit's not going anywhere. It's going to the ground.
Absolutely, and the Pride now have a 3-point lead. That's a service ace for Mayfield. We're a timeout here called by Coach Debbie Baker of Southern Virginia as the Pride take a 4-point lead in this first set, 12-8 as it currently stands. And speaking of Coach Debbie Baker, again, one of the things we also talked about her before the game was the main thing that she's noticed with this roster is consistency, right? Consistency has been a major issue going into this game. They've won games where arguably they shouldn't have been in them statistically, or they've lost games where really they shouldn't have had any problems with. And that, of course, goes back to the fact that this roster has 13 freshmen. Coach Debbie Baker, in the entire time she's been here, and the entire time that I've been a part of broadcasting, has never brought on this many freshmen onto this roster. And so we talked to her, and she's like, well, there's, of course, growing pains with that with both the athletes as well as the coaches themselves, because, as I mentioned before, this team, this Southern Virginia women's volleyball team, is back-to-back USA South Conference champions that appeared in the national tournament several seasons of the past, pretty much almost every other season that I've been here that made it to the tournament. And so when you have that level of success at a consistent pace, now all of a sudden you have a lot of freshmen coming in and a lot of young people. Sometimes it's really hard to have that patience that you need to build up those players, and that's kind of where Southern Virginia is currently at right now, is learning how to play together and to build that consistency. Because again, as a young player, your emotions guide you very easily.
100%, but noticing out on our court, these girls do have a lot of love for each other and a lot of trust for each other, and
Right.
I think a big part of that is because they are freshmen and they have multiple brains, I would say, so they can learn and they can overcome things easier.
And whatever Coach Dave Baker had to say in that timeout huddle, it certainly worked, at least for that play, as Bassett gets the absolute thunderous hit to land for Southern Virginia, brings it back within 3.
Debbie Baker, every time I've seen her call a timeout, our team comes back to the court stronger and way more powerful. I'm not sure what it is, but she's got some magic words.
Absolutely, and that service ace for Sydney Bassett, who came into this game with 19 service aces, make it 20 on the season. And Clyde able to put it right back down, brings it back within 1. You know, back to what you said, you're absolutely right. Every time I've seen Coach Baker call a timeout, the team, any of the rosters that I've seen in the past couple of years, they come out on fire, and whether it be because they need a stern talking to or they're told exactly what they need to correct if they're just one step away.
That proves a lot to Coach and how observant she is, and
Right.
how well trained, I guess, skilled she is to be able to point out those mistakes and make her team just that much better during the short 1-minute span.
Absolutely, and with that, we are tied back up at 12 apiece here in the first set. That served just a little far from Bassett, but again, talk about a bounce back after a timeout. And you know, personally speaking, I've commentated a lot of sports and I've been around a lot of sports my entire life. I don't think I've ever seen timeouts drastically change the momentum of a game so fast as in the game of volleyball.
I agree. I've also played a lot of sports growing up, watching and hearing sports, and I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it. Maybe like every once in a while in basketball, but it's almost every single game or every single timeout in volleyball.
It's like there's just a pendulum switch each and every time as Southern Virginia ties it back up once again. And coming into serve for Southern Virginia is number 9, Taryn Anderson. Anderson, the freshman from Nephi, Utah. Tipped up in the air that time from Madeline. Here's Bassett to Clyde. That hit just short from number 18, Peyton Shiflett, and gives the Knights back the lead, 14-13. Solid serve that time. Diving effort there from Hoofman. Great job tipping in the air by Peterson, able to keep it alive on the near side. Fantastic strike there from Shiflett.
Greensboro, on the other hand, talking about age again, is not a young team. They are coming in with only 6 freshmen this year. They are most predominantly sophomores with 8 sophomores, 9 sophomores, but they only have 2 seniors as well. So we are pretty matched up, but their players do have that team bonding experience for at least a season.
And honestly, in next levels of sports, that means so much.
Yeah.
At the net, Peterson able to get it back up. Here's Clyde to Bassett.
There's just so much that goes into a season. These girls are training together year round, not just during season. We've got weights, we've got conditioning, and so noting that it's probably similar for Greensboro, that does make a big difference that singular year.
And Jelaine Peterson getting into the net that time. That awards a point to the Pride. And to your point, whenever you escalate to another level of athletics, whether it's from middle school to high school to college, or college to professional, there's always an increased level of speed and knowledge that you need to have in order to be successful at that sport. And so you talk about just that simply one extra year makes so much difference as Clyde gets that one to fall. I'm loving a lot of effort that I'm seeing from Jelaine Peterson at the net. Several plays where she has kept plays alive. It's not necessarily anything that adds to her stats like blocks or anything like that, but she'll tip it at the net and then get it back up so that her teammates can make a play on it, and you absolutely love to see that.
She is very present in her game tonight.
And again, being the lone senior on this roster, just those small little plays, again, just comes from that amount of experience.
I would say she's kind of the glue to this team, if that makes sense. She's got everything. She's got the experience. She's got the team leadership. She's got everything that it needs for this team to pull it together. So if it's just a simple tip or a simple block, it might seem small, but she's just adding that much more to her team.
And speaking of which, Jelaine Peterson gets the pin to fall. Beautifully set up. Great defensive work from honestly both sides on that play. It was a great rally right there. And again, talking about Jelaine Peterson being a senior, this is actually her 5th season. Of course, she had an extra season granted to her due to, of course, the pandemic over the past couple of years. Was granted that. And so was really excited for that opportunity. When I talked to her over the offseason, she was just really excited about the fact that she got that extra year because, again, when you play a sport at the collegiate level, you have to love it in order to actually stick through it for all 4, in her case, 5 years.
I completely agree. There's just so much that goes into it that if you don't love it, you're just going to get burnt out.
Peterson once again going for the pin. Handled that time by number 17, Jade Robel. Back row, Bassett. And it sails out. No tip called. The point will be awarded to the Pride and ties it up at 16. Now back to serve for the Pride is number 18, Peyton Shiflett.
Back to serve, number 13.
Excuse me, it's actually serving number 13, Grace Klingensmith. That one sails out, gives the Knights back the lead. And now back to serve for Southern Virginia will be number 25, Brooklyn Madland, freshman from Mission Viejo, California. and hit right towards us. Gets us really involved in the game, but it sails out with a timeout called by the Pride.
They're just keeping our reflexes intact.
Making sure we're paying attention.
Yep, exactly.
Exactly what you'd love to see. And so with that, the Knights now have a 2-point lead here in the first set of today's USA South matchup. And, you know, speaking of conference, it's very early in the season, of course. There's a lot of volleyball left to be played. But I always say when you as a team get into the nitty-gritty of your conference schedule, that's when the real season begins. You know, you look at sports like Division I college football. In that, every game matters. You have to win every single game in order to make it, possibly make it to the college football playoff and whatnot. But at this level, I'm not going to say those games don't matter because, of course, a lot of things you learn from it. There's confidence to be built with victories and lessons to be learned from losses. But in conference play, that's when you as a coach or as a player look at and say, okay, these are the games we absolutely have to win. There's just an extra level of intensity. There's an extra level of determination and, honestly, in some instances, desperation to win those games to make sure you build yourself up, get yourself in good standing for conference tournament time, which, again, is a little ways away, but is definitely something that's always on your mind as both a coach and a player, especially in an early conference season matchup like this.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think those freshmen that we have kept mentioning, it's especially prominent in their brain because they don't want to let their coach down, they don't want to let their upperclassmen down, and they want to make it back to win that conference championship.
Absolutely, and so we'll have, once again, Brooklyn Madlin back to serve. The Knights holding on to a 2-point lead in this first set. Tapped back by Peterson. Peterson seemed to hang in the air a little bit because there was a bit of hesitation on that hit on the near side from number 12, Krista Brantley. But Peterson was still able to get there in time and tap it back over to where no one was on the Pride side. That served just short by Madlin.
Madlin is third on our statistics sheet for kills, and she is only a freshman. So it's fun to see how she takes new things she learns.
Right, absolutely. Again, when you're a freshman and you step up and produce like a lot of these freshmen have basically had to out of necessity, you know, there's a certain character quality that you have to commend for that. A solid hit that time for number 1, Kelsey Brooks. Falls right in front of number 13, Nikki Stevenson. Now back to serve as number 8, Kennedy Brumley. More miscommunication there in the back row. And it ties it back up at 19 apiece. I think so far one thing I've noticed is that the main difference between these two teams is that Greensboro has had more consistency in their back row. They've been able to make plays, set themselves up. Teammates diving over each other.
They pulled it back, though.
They absolutely did, able to get back up. Back row hit, that sails off the hand of number 18, Peyton Shiflett. Gives the lead back to the Knights.
You see some of our student section looking way back. Where'd that ball go?
You always gotta love those student celebrations.
They're pretty funny to watch.
Being in the crowd and seeing the reactions, and Ensley with the service ace. Perfectly timed. The junior from Gold Canyon, Arizona. Gives the Knights the 2-point lead. A little bit of miscommunication there on the Pride. That set was way too far outside for Sydney Bassett, who's a right-handed hitter.
She tried to save it, though. She did try.
She reached out pretty much with every inch that she had of her body, of her wingspan to get it. But at
like
some point,
Spider-Man pulling the ferry together.
Yeah, basically. Great attempt there from Bassett, but again, the set just a little too far to the outside. Back row hit here from Madlin. And that's going to be the back left corner point to Southern Virginia. And come back onto the floor is number 3, Brenna Clyde for Southern Virginia, with number 7, Sarah Hoofman back to serve. And the Knights 3 points away from taking this first set. That set was just a little too far back for Bassett. Her approach had to be shortened, and so she's a little off balance on the hit, was reaching kind of behind her. And when you're reaching behind you can't quite get on top of it like you want to.
It's that timing that we talked about. It is essential
Right.
to this game.
Here's Clyde. Beautiful setup, but fantastic work there at the net by number 17, Jade Vrabel. Well executed on the Knights side. But again, the strong hands from Vrabel. Number 0, Mayfield back to serve. Low pass from Ensley. Rare miscue from her in the back row. And a timeout called by Coach Debbie Baker of Southern Virginia, as now the Pride are 2 points away from a set victory, now leading 23-22 in this first set here at the barn. Again, it's back and forth. A lot of that is, again, that consistency that we talked about. You know, teams that are more mature, have a lot of more experience under their belt, and have a lot more just games in general. They know how to maintain a momentum swing. And that's the thing, is you can't control when momentum gets on your side. You can do everything you possibly can and try to, you know, execute as well as you can. But what mature teams do is when they have the momentum, they learn how to capitalize and keep the momentum on their side as long as they possibly can, right? And that's, again, one thing you have to develop as a young roster.
Yeah, and I think every game, every point, every set that is won, they're trying to learn and they're trying to be better.
Right. That's absolutely true. Once again, the score right now stands 23-22 in favor of the Pride of Greensboro College. The Knights trying to fight off a small little comeback here, as the Knights seem to be in control over the previous 6 points. And the Pride came storming back thanks to some miscues on Southern Virginia's part, both at the net and in the back row. Here's Mayfield. Miscommunication once again. Makes it set point for the Pride. And those types of points that you hate to give up too, where you can easily get a first pass, first touch, and they just miscommunicate who gets it. Tough serve to handle there for number 25, Brooklyn Madlin. So the first set goes to the Pride of Greensboro College as they take a 1-0 set lead. And during this quick little break, the Knight Athletic Department would like to thank the following sponsors for their continued support of Knights Athletics. As listed below: Cornered Stone Bank, Mill Creek Orthodontics, River Crossing Apartments, Straws Drinks and Eats, one of my personal favorite places here in Buena Vista, Virginia, Grace Automotive, Papa John's Pizza, Vinyl Cuts, The Beef Sweet Souvenirs, and Katana Sushi and Hibachi Express. A lot of great local businesses here in the Buena Vista, Virginia area. Thank you so much for your support of Knight Athletics. And if you would like to partner with Knight Athletics to promote your business to the Knight Nation, please contact Brett Schroeder at 801-633-1894. I mentioned Straws Drinks and Eats. I go there very frequently. My drink of choice there, it's a soda and treat shop. My drink of choice: Dr. Pepper, cherry, vanilla, lime, and a little bit of almond cream. Hits the spot every single time. I always got to shout them out on these things just because they're basically family at this point to me.
My favorite is Katana.
Oh, yes.
It's such a small town, so to have a sushi place, it's like, yes.
That is the usual
Thank
go-to
you.
for my wife and I. We want to have a dinner out and a date night. We don't want to go too far. Katana is our place to go.
Yeah.
But again, with that first set, you saw the Knights take some momentum later on in the set. Then it kind of quickly fell apart for them, as the main thing that I noticed was, again, communication. And, you know, we talked about both timing and communication are the two most key elements in the sport of volleyball. Of course, it absolutely helps to be able to jump really high, to hit really hard, to be really fast, to get where you need to be position-wise. But those two things, again, timing and communication, are what makes great teams.
Yeah, you can hit super hard and have wrong timing, and it goes flying.
Right.
So I think those are the refining skills that are needed to play volleyball.
Absolutely. And some statistical leaders for both programs right now. You have Brooks for Greensboro College with 2 kills, and Brantley with 2 kills, and Delamar with 4. Delamar doing a fantastic job for Greensboro College. And then for Southern Virginia side, leading in that category is Brenna Clyde with 3 kills, then Madeline with 2. And again, there's some attack errors going on both sides. Neither team is spotless in that category. Greensboro College with 10 attack errors, Southern Virginia with 8. And Southern Virginia does have 3 block errors and 2 reception errors, which definitely does not help your case. Again, we talk about communication. We talk about, because again, you can't start a play unless you can get that first pass. And that first pass is the most important part of communication.
Yeah.
Saying who has it, who can get that first pass, who's able to get there in time, who's able to set up the play. And if Southern Virginia can correct that, they can be a business.
Yeah, it is definitely the cornerstone, is getting that first pass.
Having some substitution communications here happening with the line judges. And on the floor right now for the Pride, you have number 1, Kelsey Brooks. You have number 3, Jalen Templeton. Of course, number 0, libero Morgan Mayfield. Number 8, Kennedy Brumley. Number 12, Krista Brantley. And number 17, Jade Rabel. For Southern Virginia side, you have Jelaine Peterson, Jessica Ensley. You have Brenna Clyde, Sydney Bassett, Sarah Hoofman, and Brooklyn Madlin on the floor. And serving to start things off in this second set is number 3, Jalen Templeton, sophomore from Mount Airy, North Carolina. Difficult set that time, but able to knock it down as number 12, Krista Brantley. I mean, setting it across the net, across the court like that. I mean, there's a lot of impressive things you can do in volleyball, and that is indeed one of them.
It is, because I think most importantly because you can't really see where the lines are. This floor is just so shiny.
Right. There's Madeline. Great job backing up there with Sarah Hoofman. And Sleeta Clyde. They're going to call in the net. I believe they're going to say that that was Robel.
It looks like Jade Rabel is their most docile player on their court. She's got multiple positions listed on our roster here.
Just a jack of all trades, really able to do a lot for this roster. As another point falls to the Pride. We'll have number 9, Lauren Mantell, back to serve, the senior from La Mesa, California. And I believe that was maybe tipped at the net. Indeed it was by Hoofman. So another point to the Pride as they extend their lead 3-1 in this second set. You know, one thing too that I'm noticing right now is that Southern Virginia has very rarely been able to get a clean attack going.
I agree. I think
that hit out of bounds.
I think they're a little bit startled. I think that might be what it is. They're trying to gather themselves. They're trying to regroup from that last set.
Indeed, a set that looked to be in their grasp for a good amount of the time. Here's Madeline. And great work once again by Mayfield in the back row. Diving effort there from Hoofman, but it's going to fall once again for the Pride. And I think you're right, when you have things not quite go your way and you drop a set that you don't feel like you should have, it's very easy to get frantic. It's very easy to kind of spiral in a sense.
I completely agree. That was one of my biggest challenges playing any type of sport. I played a lot growing up, but losing a set or losing a half of the game that should have been won, that was the biggest turn up for me. I couldn't get my head on straight.
That serve a little short and to the near side. And that's one of the things where you hear a lot of coaches and a lot of experienced players in regards to that topic. They said that in those situations you have to have the best, or in this case, worst short-term memory of anyone. You have to just be able to just forget what happened, clear your mind, and simply consider the next game its own game altogether. Start fresh.
Gotta be Dory.
You absolutely have to be Dory from Finding Nemo. That's exactly right. Here's Peterson. Almost getting that up soccer style was Mantell. Peterson able to get that one to fall for her.
We do have a soccer game going on right now. Is it women's or men's?
I believe it's men's tonight.
Men's? Gotcha.
Of course, she wouldn't, her being from Greensboro, she wouldn't know that, but being a little bit in solidarity with people playing just across the way at Knight Stadium. Here's Inslee to serve. Bassett trying to knock it back down.
That was a good recovery we just had.
It absolutely was. And able to knock that one down is number 10, Taylor Cody. She's been kind of silent, especially in the later half of that first set. Again, into the net, just a little bit of miscommunication there as the Knights are seeing this lead for Greensboro College increase more and more. The score now stands 8-3 in favor of the Pride.
Hopefully this timeout will do some magic for them.
Exactly like the last timeout that Baker called in the early parts of that first set, where the momentum just shifted like that. All of a sudden the Knights were able to get timing right. They had some serves that were fantastic. And I want to correct a previous statement I made talking about the stats here. It's number 18, Peyton Shiflett, who's leading the way in kills for the Pride with 6 at the moment. She leads both teams on the floor in that category. And so Shiflett, again, being really productive, and Southern Virginia, again, just a lot of the problems that they're seeing, again, a lot of it can just come down to some sloppiness and miscommunication. And, again, I know it's exactly what they're saying there on the sidelines, and you see assistant coach John Baker over there talking. And that's one thing he always tries to hammer home is consistency and bring yourselves back together. You know, because again, like we mentioned before, it's very easy to kind of let yourself, like a spool of thread, become undone and not stable anymore. But if you can calm down, realize, hey, we play the sport on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You know, we've won games. They've won 6 games so far this year. We know how to do this.
They've just kind of got to take that breath, be like, okay, we got this. We know how to play this game.
Right, absolutely. And so on the flip side, though, Greensboro College, they're really having a fun time with it right now, being able to do a lot of what they want. Now with number 12, Krista Brantley, back to serve.
It's fun when you're winning.
Diving effort there from Stevenson. Stevenson having to dive basically twice on that play. So back to serve once again is Brantley. Lead extended to 9-3. Here's Bassett. One of the cleaner attacks the Knights have been able to have tonight, and surprise, surprise, it works out in their favor. Brenna Clyde come back in for Southern Virginia.
Got a little Baker magic going.
And then back to serve for Southern Virginia is Hoofman. The pin beautifully executed with the hit and delivery from Taylor Cody. You can tell just seeing Taylor Cody on the court right now, she clearly wanted to put a lot more power into that hit. It's been kind of the pattern for her tonight where she's been able to get a couple of accurate hits, able to get some kills. Doesn't necessarily have that firepower behind it that she maybe would want, but it works out. Here's Clyde having to take a wild swing as she's leaning backwards. And that's going to be out. The lead extends once again for the Pride. Ola Brumley back to serve. I am absolutely loving the effort from libero Mayfield for Greensboro College tonight. She has really been Johnny on the spot in that back row. Pride swinging at that one.
Morgan
Goes out.
Mayfield. Is that who we're talking about, Morgan Mayfield?
Absolutely, yes.
She also has the best statistic serve, along with Grace. This writing is so small. Kilgan-Smith. If I said that wrong, I apologize.
Grace Klingen-Smith, yes.
Klingen-Smith, yes. She and Morgan Mayfield have the best serves, I believe, with 24 prior to the game in aces.
Absolutely. And again, I mentioned Mayfield. Being that libero, I feel like when you wear the libero uniform, you're basically the designated hustler. That's what you have to be. You're the designated hustler. You've got to be everywhere on the floor, especially in that back row. You got to make sure that, of course, the setter. The setter, of course, is sprinting everywhere. But
right.
The libero in the back row is responsible for so much, and she's the designated person that has to be in the exact place at the right time, be able to read the hitters on the outside, and she has done just that tonight. It's been really impressive to see. She's kept plays alive for the Pride, and again, that's what you love to see from a libero.
I am always impressed by liberos because they have to keep their strength up every second of the game. So if this game goes, or if any game goes 5 sets, you roll up the libero sleeves and their arms are just beat red. Just because they have to keep that strength up, they don't get room to complain.
That is very, very true. Liberos are often having to be the toughest players on the team for the exact reason that you just mentioned. Now back to serve once again is Brumley for the Pride as they have a commanding 12-4 lead in this second set over the Knights of Southern Virginia. They're going to call a double that time. I believe that's on Ensley. They're going to call that on. And checking in for Southern Virginia is number 24, Abby Gregory, the sophomore from Scottsdale, Arizona. It's now a 9-point lead for the Pride. Beautiful float serve right at the 10-foot line. Ensley diving for it, but it falls to the service ace for the Pride.
If you've ever played tennis, that 10-foot line is basically what you would call like your dead man zone.
Right.
It's not a fun place to be, but it's a perfect place to serve.
If you're skilled enough to pull it off, that is.
Yes, exactly.
The same thing with pickleball. It's called no man's land. Pretty much the same exact concept. And swinging and delivering that time is Brenna Clyde. And if a play like that doesn't give you some momentum, if you're Southern Virginia, I don't know what will. So now Southern Virginia has to capitalize on that with number 4, Sydney Bassett, back to serve. As Gregory able to get that one to fall as it was just out of reach of Kelsey Brooks. The Knights fighting back here, now down by 8.
Slowly but surely bringing that number up.
And
one more.
And an accurate pass that time, intended for a hit for Kelsey Brooks, goes into the net. And like you said, slowly but surely, and that's how you got to whittle into a deficit like this. You can't just look at it like, oh, I have to make up all 8 points now. You have to look at it as, okay, next play, what can I do to decrease this lead that they have? Next play,
Yes.
next play.
It's definitely, if you've heard about the 1% theory, it's 1% at a time, not 100 all at once.
Absolutely. They're going to call a double there on number 3, Jalen Templeton. So timeout called by the Pride as the Knights are fighting their way back, now within 6. And again, it's like you said, the 1%. What 1% can I accomplish in this next play? What small little thing can you do? You have to think about it strategically And again, we talk about the word patience. Patience has to be a part of that conversation. You have to have patience to recognize, okay, it's like you said, it's not going to all come back at once. We're not just going to have some magnificent play that's going to give us all 6 points that we need. This isn't football. This is volleyball where it's literally one at a time.
Yeah, that's the only way you can go about it. But I think that's the fun part of this sport is that there is such a toss-up between, okay, what's going to happen next?
Right. Absolutely. And so, again, the Pride have a 14-8 lead over the Knights of Southern Virginia in this second set. For those just tuning in, the Pride took the first set by a score of 25-22. And the Knights are trying to make a comeback effort here in this second set. Here's Bassett to serve once again. Here's Clyde. Another kill for Clyde. She now breaks even with Shiflett as the leader in kills in today's contest so far. That serve from Bassett floats out. Gives the ball back to the Pride. Libero, number 0, Mayfield, back to serve once again. Beautiful placement that time.
One of the things I love about volleyball is when they find that opening in the court where no one really can get to it. That's one of, I think, the most exhilarating plays that you can.
It's like you're up in the air, you see the spot, and your eyes just kind of go wide.
Yep.
And you attack it. The Knights storming back. Service ace for Taryn Anderson.
We need 4 to tie Greensboro.
Touching the top of the net.
That was a gorgeous serve. I love those tip serves where they just slightly come off the net.
Peterson able to throw it down. The timing of that set was fantastic. Again, that's one thing we're seeing also is that over the past couple points, the timing has been there. And it goes back to if you can keep that timing and consistently set up your teammates like that, things are going to work out for you.
You've seen the energy shift from Greensboro side of the court to the SVU Knights. Greensboro is a little more serious, a little more, what's the word for it? A little more focused? I wouldn't say focused, just SVU has that spirit that's in them, and it's shifted from the beginning of this set.
Absolutely, as it's now only a 2-point deficit. That serve sails from Anderson. Brings it back to a 3-point deficit, but again, storming back, making those small plays. I will see Ensley, the libero, back on the floor for Southern Virginia, and for the Pride, number 3, Templeton back to serve. Templeton currently sits at 14 assists in today's game. And that's going to be out. And a point for Southern Virginia. There was a point of contention there on the hit by Gregory. I think Greensboro College is trying to argue that her hit didn't hit anybody from Greensboro's side. It hit the top of the net and bounced back, and so would have been called a 4th hit.
Oh, gotcha.
But the line judge just saw, I guess, a different story. Stevenson with a fantastic serve. Brings it within 1.
You can see our student section is hyped up right now. Everybody is super excited to see where this match leads, to see if we can tie them in sets.
Back to serve once again is the sophomore from Elliott Lake, Ontario, Canada.
She's international. That's cool.
Fantastic placement there for Brooks. Again, in the spot where no one thought she could get to it. She was jumping off her back foot, leaning backwards, hitting across the net. That's a tough spot to reach, but it brings it back to a 2-point lead for the Pride. And that was Mantell serving. The pin. Hoofman trying to find that
sneaky.
spot. Gregory sends it back over in one pass. Here's Gregory. Keeping it alive. But it falls the point for the Pride. We're starting to see again the momentum start to shift back towards Greensboro College.
Yeah, it's a big give and take. And I think if we can keep that spirit that we had, we'll be able to keep our lead, if that makes sense. I think that's one of the biggest things about sports is if you don't have the spirit, if you don't have the drive or the fire within you, then it's kind of hard to stay on top of your game.
It absolutely is. Some miscommunication once again nearly leads to a costly point.
That was, is it a little warm over here? I think I just saw some sparks come off of that ball.
That was a powerful hit to say the least.
That was.
And then, of course, the ceiling coming into play. Usually it's away teams that tend to struggle with that because the Knights, again, they practice in this gym every single day. That time, it comes back to bite them. The first ball over the net. And that goes down for Shiflett. Shiflett gets her 8th kill and extends the lead back to 5. Make it 20-15 here in the second set. And like I said, that steam is starting to deflate out of Southern Virginia at the moment. We'll see if they're able to capture and take it back. Peterson able to get that to fall. Brings it back within 4. The amount of times over the past 5 years that I have said Peterson with the pin, I can't even keep track. That's one of her favorite plays, one of the plays I've seen her be the most successful with. And we've seen that a couple of times tonight.
There are some fun plays of names that you can do. My dad, last time I was commentating on a volleyball game, he was watching, so my phone would go off like every 3 minutes, just ding, ding, ding. And after the game, I get on my phone and there's like 20 notifications, and he was like, oh, you should use this, and you should use that. You can do like what was it? One of them was like a something special. I was like, Dad.
You were getting immediate feedback.
Yep, exactly.
You love to hear that. Here's Bassett. Gets it past the 2 blockers. Brings it back within 4.
There's that fire. I think they've got a little bit. Number 4, Sydney Bassett, is hyping up her team on the court.
Indeed she is, and back to serve is Jessica Ensley. That one sails in her as well. You've seen a couple of serves, a lot of float to them for Southern Virginia that goes just a bit too far.
It's because they're in the gym, man. They're just too strong.
Got to talk to the weight and conditioning coaches here at Southern Virginia. They're doing their job a little too well.
Yep.
That one falls short as well, and the Pride are 2 points away from taking this second set. Number 12, Krista Brantley back to serve. And now on falls for number 10, Cody, getting her 4th kill of the game. Now set point for the Pride. A little trickery there from Hoofman. Gregory keeping it alive. Gregory trying to push it back over, but that ends up being the 25th point of the second set for the Pride. They take the victory 25-17, now up 2 sets to nothing.
That dang ceiling, man.
It definitely comes back to bite you for sure.
Yeah.
So now the Knights find themselves in a little bit of a hole. And in the sport of volleyball, we've seen crazier things. We've seen plenty crazier things.
That's true. Against their, I think it was Pfeiffer last week or the week before, we were down. I think we were almost in this exact same position, and we came back, kind of pulled it out of nowhere, but we ended up winning that match.
Absolutely. And so, like you were saying, anything can happen. You can battle back 3 straight sets. and there's a lot of potential on the Southern Virginia roster to do so. Again, a lot of it just has to be being consistent with your accurate passes, with your hustle, with your communication. And again, I'm sure those main things are what's being talked about in this huddle between the second and third and potentially final set of today's matchup. And want to once again give a shout out to all the athletic partners of Southern Virginia, like I mentioned before, Cornerstone Bank, Mill Creek Orthodontics, River Crossing Apartments, Straws Drinks and Eats, Grace Automotive, where SVU students and staff can receive 10% off their vehicle maintenance needs, which is absolutely fantastic. If you're an adult and you know how expensive car maintenance can be, that is absolutely fantastic. Papa John's Pizza, which is locally owned and operated, Vinyl Cuts, The Beef, Sweet Souvenirs, and Katana Sushi and Hibachi Express. And once again, if you'd like to partner with Knights Athletics to promote your business to the Knight Nation, please contact Brett Schroeder at 801-633-1894. Again, that's 801-633-1894. And one last little thing about straws we were asked to mention is that there'll be a music performance fundraiser by Blue Forest Theater Academy at Straws Drinks and Eats on Friday, September the 30th. And then a week after that, on October 6th, there'll be open mic night. So go show off your vocals if you want to, if you're into singing, or if you just simply want to have a good
maybe.
Or you just want to have a good time with your friends, then go and check that out at Straws Drinks and Eats. Again, one of my favorite places in the town of Buena Vista we have here in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Once again, thanks to all those who partner with Southern Virginia Athletics. We appreciate you.
You said, is it the Beeve or the BV? I always thought it was the BV, like Buena Vista.
I've always heard it called the Beef, but then
Really?
again, I could very easily be wrong.
Okay.
When I first came into town, I used to call it Buena Vista, so
Boona. You say it like the locals, Boona.
yeah, pretty much.
I don't know, maybe. I'll have to ask.
We'll have to
when I go in
consult
there
the experts on
Yep.
that one.
Yep.
We'll have to get some notes and feedback after the game. But once again, a lot of this just comes back down to the basics we've been talking about, is communicating. You see the Knights players huddling on the court, really trying to fire each other up, trying to let each other know, like, hey, we got this. This is not our brand of volleyball. We communicate better than this. We operate better than this. They've shown it time and time again, not only in the past couple seasons, but just this year as well. And so we'll approach the third and potentially final set here in the barn at Southern Virginia. And again, going into today's contest, the Knights had yet to lose a game in the barn this season. They are 2-0 at home. And in strictly away games, statistically speaking, the Pride had yet to win an away game. So if the Knights...
today's the day that it switches up. Maybe not. I guess we'll find out.
That'll be up to the Knights if they can pull things together here in this third set and beyond. Beautiful block there from Clyde and Wanker. I mean, that's a great way to start.
This is very true.
Back to serve as Hoofman. Here's Clyde having to speed up her approach on that one. Here's a pin. And that goes down for Vrobel.
Was a beautiful hit. You can't deny that. That was gorgeous.
And, you know, we talked a lot about what Southern Virginia is going to be hoping to do in this third set. We're talking about the flip side with Greensboro College. You know, you've kind of had the majority of the momentum over the first two sets. One thing that can be very easy to do is just simply think to yourself, we got this in the bag, nothing to worry about, and then laziness starts to settle in.
Get a little too cocky and mess around, you find out.
Right, and of course that's one thing that I expect Coach Kevin Troop to know very well. He's a very skilled coach. In fact, you know, I was looking at his win-loss record as that hit from Bassett falls just short. You know, Troop took over this Greensboro College team back in 2018. That season they went 4-23. The next year in 2019, they went 17-17 and increased their conference win numbers by 5 games. Diving effort there from Bassett as the Pride extend their lead to 3 points to 1. So again, you talk about people who were able to grow a program and help to turn things around. I mean, that's Coach Troop for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Again, back row play really haunting Southern Virginia right now.
I think that's probably one of the things they're going to be working on in their practices coming up is their back row, getting that a little more solidified.
Back to serve is Templeton. Here's Bassett trying to keep it up. The wall put up by Brooks was just too strong. And you talk about back row, it takes me back to one thing that former libero for Southern Virginia, Emma Steiger, used to do, is she would come in every morning, I believe around 6 a.m.
Yikes.
And work with head coach or assistant coach John Baker and just receive serves from him for an hour and just work on her receiving and trying to get as accurate passes as possible to set up these plays. That's the type of effort that it takes to be a solid back row.
I agree. I think that's really prominent looking at Emma Steiger.
Emma Steiger, yep.
Emma Steiger, yeah. I think sometimes we need a little bit of that kind of leadership to be like, oh, if one person does it, then maybe the team will start to follow. So maybe that's kind of what we need, is someone to say, oh, I need to work just that much harder.
And perhaps for all I know, that's probably happening with somebody, right? We never know. That's one thing that was told to us from assistant coach John Baker about Emma Steiger. Basically at the end of her playing career, they finally told us, hey, she's been doing this for a while. But like you said, again, putting in that extra work and trying to figure out how to solve those problems in the back row. Here's Mantell to serve. Here's Clyde. Again, got a little underneath that hit because she had to jump off her back foot off that pass.
Timing.
Absolutely, and now a 5-point lead for the Pride. Here's Mantell back to serve once again. Here's Gregory.
Is that an air vent up there? Is that what that big protruding thing is?
Indeed that is, and that's going to fall inside.
I've always wondered.
That'll be a kill for Brantley. Timeout for Southern Virginia as they now are in a 6-point hole here in this third and potentially final set.
Hopefully we can have some of that Baker timeout magic going.
And again, right now with the 6-point lead, the Pride are just simply trying to finish out this contest. And honestly, the goal of any volleyball team is to make the game as short as possible and then come away happy. Those are the two main things you want to come out of with a volleyball game is, oh, it didn't take too long, and we're happy that we won. So they're trying to get out of that. And then Southern Virginia, again, just trying to figure out some things. This is their 5th game in conference play this season, currently standing at a 3-1 conference record. And, I mentioned the importance of conference games even this early in the season. One thing to keep in mind, too, is that with conference game losses as well, those are the most competitive games you're going to have, is those conference matchups. If you're going to lose a game, like let's say Southern Virginia ends up losing this one in this set, there's lessons you can learn take away from it. Again, one thing we talked about ad nauseum so far has been the back row. Back row has been an issue for Southern Virginia in this game. So you take a lesson from that. How can we improve the back row? What things can we do? How can we anticipate serves that come our way? How can we have a more accurate pass, right? There's a lot of questions you can ask yourself with either victories or with losses. So Southern Virginia, again, looking to battle back from the 6-point deficit. They faced a larger deficit in the second set, and were able to battle back and tie things up.
Dawson, I'm going to be completely honest. I wasn't listening. I was doing the Macarena. That's what was playing just now.
You just got to love the atmosphere here at Knight Arena.
Sometimes you just got to dance it out,
That hit from number 12, Brantley, is going to fall short, bring it back within 5. Well, Jade, I appreciate your honesty. I absolutely love that honesty.
Yeah, the ref, one of the officials came up, and he's like, you should go do that on the floor. I was like, no.
Back to serve for Southern Virginia was number 9. That's Anderson, Taryn Anderson. Hitting the perfect spot on the floor is Brantley. Brantley now with her 4th kill. She's now tied for 2nd on the Pride side statistically with 4 kills. Now back to serve for the Pride is Klingen Smith. We'll see senior Jelaine Peterson back on the floor for Southern Virginia. Here's Clyde. Able to sort of drop that in, teardrop that inside the 10-foot line. She saw the wall come up, and she will come back out in favor of number 13, Nikki Stevenson, who will serve in her place.
That was a gorgeous find. She found that hole, and she put it there, right in the center.
Now the Knights down by 5. Stevenson back to serve. She has one service ace so far today. That serve into the net. And that's one thing as a commentator you tend to have to be careful of, is commentators curse. You know, you either talk about a player doing really well in the game and then something happens, or they talk about them not necessarily having the best day, then they kind of prove you as a commentator wrong.
I was confused. I thought you meant like cussing. I was like, what? Like, wait, where did that come from?
No, definitely not that problem.
Yeah. I think you're completely right, though. It's happened to me a bunch during whatever game I've been commentating on. I'll be like, wow, this player has statistically done so well in this. And then they'll just totally, what's the word I'm looking for? Bluff it? Not that one.
It just doesn't go like you painted it out.
Exactly. And it usually happens exactly after you make the comment. You're like, oh, well, now I just look stupid.
That serve goes out. Great call by Ensley to call it out. I mean, I've been commentating for half a decade now, and I've been around long enough to know that is definitely a real thing, as now the Knights face a 7-point deficit after that run by the Pride. Here's Abby Gregory back to serve. That serve is just out. Make it 13-5 in favor of the Pride. Some substitutions for Greensboro College, including number 1, Kelsey Brooks, and in to serve is number 8, Kennedy Brumley.
That was a beautiful pancake.
Hoofman diving in there, but the ball did not quite bounce high enough for anyone else to be able to get to it.
Not quite, but that dedication was there. She put it out there. Whenever I see a volleyball player dive, I think about when I was a kid and I fell and like ripped my knee up, and I'm like, ugh, ouch.
That's definitely never fun, as that was a fantastically placed serve there by Brumley. Checking in for Southern Virginia's number 8, Ruby, I'll make this right, Blaemeyers. Blaemeyers, freshman from Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Oh my gosh, I live really close to there.
Hey, same here. That was my old neck of the woods for quite a while. Indeed, near the Pueblo area. That block right there for Sydney Bassett. Got several Coloradans here.
Colorado, it's just the best. Good old, there's a lot of weed, so I feel like that's why everybody's so chill.
Serve there from Ensley. And it's gonna just trip over the net for a service ace for her. Still an 8-point lead for the Pride. A lot of room to make up, but plenty of time to do so.
That was a beautiful block.
And great recovery there from Mayfield. That one sails out.
She's been in the gym too much, man. Whew. Look at those muscles.
There's a little hesitation on the line judge's part to see if there was a touch or not. But it will be a point for the Pride, and Mayfield back to serve. Here's Bassett. Putting it right down in that back far corner is number 9, Lauren Mantell. Another timeout for Southern Virginia as they find themselves down by 10 in this third and potentially final set.
Just gotta kind of recover, take a breath from that last couple of points.
And again, the Knights have had times where they've kind of hurried back and they've gotten a couple points in a row. They've gotten some good serves, some good attacks going. But again, it all comes back down to that word consistency, being able to maintain and ride that wave of momentum. It's,
Right.
if you want to compare it to surfing, if you actually find a good wave and you ride it out for as long as you possibly can, rather than bailing out as soon as things get good,
Right.
that's a good way to look at it. And Southern Virginia so far today has not been able to really ride out those waves to a point where they've been able to maintain and take a commanding lead so far in today's contest.
Absolutely.
And one thing that I'll point out that I've absolutely loved seeing from Southern Virginia's sideline in the past set and a half has been, with each timeout, it seems like Coach Debbie Baker has picked one player to talk to, and it's been a different player each time, just to kind of talk about, okay, we need to change this, we need to change that,
Right.
really getting some personal time with her players while she allows her assistant coaches and some other team
Right.
leaders to take command in that huddle. It's that personal approach that makes it to where players buy into a program and buy into what you're doing as a coach. And honestly, at the end of the day, like, it just shows from the coach perspective, the coaches, they love their players. Coaches
Right.
a lot of times see their players as essentially like their own kids. That's how
Yes.
strong of a bond that is. And when you do stuff like that where you take someone aside and just kind of talk to them, that shows an extension of that.
And every time she does that, after she talks to him, she gives him a big old hug.
Absolutely. Again, reaffirming that, like, hey, maybe you need to correct some things.
Right.
But let's get at it. Back to service Mayfield. And that's going to sail out. Good call by the freshman, Ruby Blaymeyers. Come back in as Brenna Clyde with Sarah Hoofman back to serve. And it flies towards the announcer's table, so difficult task to ask Bassett to dive for that one. That would not be advised.
Yeah, that would hurt.
So now back to serve as number 3, Jalen Templeton. Templeton has 4 service aces so far today, so not necessarily the person that Southern Virginia wants to see behind the back line. Bassett with a lot of authority, but Mayfield once again.
That was a great dig.
The Knights have a chance at a clean attack here. Here's Clyde. Gets that one to fall. Brings it back with a 9. And that was fantastic. Again, Greensboro College, they just simply had to send it back over. They weren't able to get a clean look,
Right.
which gave Southern Virginia an ample opportunity. Here's Bassett to serve.
Oh, some miscommunication just happened there.
And it's interesting because, again, we mentioned before that Bassett on a couple of serves, the ball's kind of floated away from her and
Right.
floated out of bounds. So I think that Greensboro College's back row thought that same thing was going to happen, but it
Right.
dropped right in that corner.
Absolutely. And she just did that exact same thing again. Maybe refining. Maybe that's what Coach talking to her about, just refining her serve.
And now a fall for Gregory. Brooks not able to get there in time. Gregory saw the opening and just gave it a little nudge over the net just to get there.
Just a little tip.
Here's Bassett to serve. Diving forward is Bassett, but that's going to be out on Southern Virginia. Point to the Pride.
Definitely awake now. Came right at me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got to dodge it.
It's like a 3D movie. All of a sudden it's coming right at
Pretty
you.
much, yep.
Got
Those
some
things are scary. 3D movies. Or like the 4D movies where they have like the sprinklers coming at you. You're like, what the?
Yeah, that is never fun, especially when I was a young kid having that. And then
Yeah.
that falls for Wankier. We had some substitutions for Greensboro College, including number 8 Kennedy Brumley and 18 Peyton Shiflett. But now back within 7 points, number 9 Taryn Anderson back to serve. Anderson, solid power in that serve right there. Gonna call in the net. I believe they're gonna say it was Gregory. Indeed, they're gonna say it was Abby Gregory who got into the net that time. That's the second time today. Mercy Ensley come back on the floor. It's now leading by 8 by a score of 20-12. The Pride have number 13, Klingensmith. And that one's going to sail out. So now it's crunch time if you're Southern Virginia. Again, you're down 2 sets. You have to win this to stay alive. And basically serving at this point, you have to be perfect for at least an extended period of time, at least to tie it up. And
there's not really a room for error here.
Absolutely. We'll have Ruby Blameyers in to serve once again, the freshman from Colorado.
Woo, go Colorado.
Making Mayfield hesitate a little bit there. Here's Gregory. Great job that time, forming the wall. That was Brantley.
It's hard to... Greensboro is doing fantastic, but it's hard as an SVU fan to point that out. But they are doing a fantastic job. They are a well-oiled machine tonight.
Here's a pin for Peterson. That was just a little too low. It makes it 22-13. Indeed, like you said, Greensboro College does a great job at covering those hits. Make sure they have 2 blockers there, and even if they don't get the 2 blockers, they at least have someone there to get a hand on it and make a play. So now it's back to a 9-point lead for the Pride. Here's Gregory having just to pass it back over. And that's going to be in the back left corner. A little bit of disputation there on that one, as that initial hit looked like it may have went more into the net than been blocked. We've seen a couple of situations tonight where it's just really hard to judge in the moment.
Right, absolutely.
That ends up falling for the Pride. 2 points away from the sweep. Ensley tracking it down. Hoopman sending it back over. Ensley just having to protect her face on that one.
I heard that. That was a powerful hit.
Able to get her hands underneath that one in the nick of time.
Yeah.
But now it's set point for the Pride. Here's Brantley. And that's going to sail out, so the Knights will live to fight another point. And Abby Gregory back to serve. Bassett right there. And that'll make it the game for the Pride. They win the 3rd set by a score of 25-14. And really, honestly, just doing a great job of commanding the momentum, especially in the 2nd and 3rd set. The 1st set, of course, was a score of 25-22. It was really more back and forth. 2nd and 3rd set, Greensboro College just really took the momentum and ran with it for the most part, really limiting the Knights' runs to just a couple of points apiece.
Yeah, absolutely. They did a fantastic job, but I think this is a great learning game for them, and I'm hoping that they'll take the constructive criticism that they got from the other team tonight and apply it during their practices and apply it during their next games.
Right, absolutely. And again, tonight was just another good example of just things you have to learn, figuring out how to work your back row. Of course, it's still early in the season. You got to figure out some things about your rotation. So if going to this next week or the next couple of weeks, you never know if there's some things they'll address with that, who they have at what positions, and just figuring out situational stuff. I'm sure there'll be a lot of drills of, hey, you're down by 6 points. You have to battle back. Let's see if we can do this. You know, that's one of the best things you can do as a coach, and I'm sure Dave Baker does it all the time. I've seen her practices. She does that a lot. Situational stuff to really drill into your head. Hey, we can fight back in these scenarios. We've done it before in practice.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so with that, the Knights now fall to a 6-9 record on the season and 3-2 in conference play. and the Pride advanced to a 7-7 .500 record and 4-1 in conference play. Again, in the young season, a lot left to learn, a lot of things to figure out before conference tournament play comes around. But like you said, Jade, a lot of things to learn from this one, and I'm sure that this Knights coaching staff, as they have for the past several seasons, will figure out exactly what those things are and run with it. And with that, I'm Dawson Weidrich. I was joined today by Jade Siemens. Thanks so much for being with me, Jade. It's been a fun time. The Knights, again, lose 3-0. We thank you so much for tuning into this presentation of Southern Virginia Athletics here on Knights Broadcasting. We appreciate your support in all this. Be sure to give us some feedback in the comment section down below. What are some things we can do better? And as always, be sure to like and subscribe to keep yourself updated on Southern Virginia Athletics. And with that, thank you so much. Good night and go Knights.